Welcome to BlackUSA.news morning show. I'm your host, William Honolulu Jr. Join us as we explore the news and opinions that impact our community. We break down how the major stories have a very personal, local, and racial impact. No topic is off limits, but even if the conversation gets rough, we're always going to keep it real. I appreciate them letting me know that happened. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I tell you all the time that I know dope people, and what's going to happen for you all right now is that you're going to meet another dope person I know. Now, a lot of the people that you all have had the pleasure of getting to know through me have been through my affiliation with the National Urban League, and this is no exception. I have a really good friend. I think I met Charles, wow, like maybe 10 years ago now. You know, when you get the age where it's like, oh yeah, it has been a little bit of time. See, Charles is still young and youthful and still got his original color. I've transitioned a little bit. But one of the things that I can say about Charles is that since I met him, I have been able to watch him just engage communities from a very authentic point of view. And I want to emphasize, because it's authentic. It's not hey, I'm trying to get a job, or hey, I'm trying to network, or it's like, I want to help. And that's one of the things that I'm starting to realize is consistent around the dope people I know. They are genuine about being in the streets and helping real people get real stuff done. So I am bringing to the stage right now, Charles Jackson. Sir, how are you doing today?
William, hello, how are you?
I'm doing okay, sir, doing okay. How about yourself?
I am in a good place right now. I'm in flux, as with everyone else in the world. So it's trying to acclimate to this new world of not being with you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm used to talking to you in person, so talking to you via, this small box we're in.
And honestly, that is a really good point. As you talk a little bit more about your background in the equity space, in the inclusion, in the diversity space, a lot of the progress that we have made in these spaces has really been about how we have been able to engage others and how we have gotten to know them. There's only so much information that I can get off your Facebook page, or only so much information I can get about your demographics and those types of things, because while those things provide a context in which you operate, it is not you. And so as you are navigating and engaging these kind of communities and engaging this type of work, how do you make sure that you are addressing people? Well, you know what? I apologize. My show notes. I did not go over my show notes. Y'all know how it goes when I don't go over my show notes. I got, see what okay. Transparency. What y'all don't understand is I had a conversation with this man before the show started. We tried to act like, we had just got kicked it off, but it's not. Yeah. And we had a really great conversation. And then I got here and tried to start a show. And then I was like, well, wait a minute. They don't even know this man. I'm just going straight into what he does and what I know about him. That seemed a little disrespectful to y'all. So before a horse has an opportunity to send me a damn show note, and I got to listen to him and Brandy tell me like, okay, next time. They're really polite though. I know I know it about them, giving me the blues about showing up, but I'm wild as fire. I get it. I'm sorry. So Charles. So one of the things that, as I'm working through my own mental health challenges, I've been incorporating the audience in them and letting them hear some of my internal narrative. Like, I know I didn't share that with you at first, but that's what you just caught right there. Okay. So, Charles, tell them about you. Tell them who you are and what it is that you.
Sure. So I am a Baltimore native. I'm from Northeast Baltimore. You have to have that very Baltimore conversation. Which side of town you're from? So my family's from over east, OVA, over east, Northeast. And I have been doing diversity, equity, inclusion work for those years are coming fast. I just looked at that. Welcome to the club, brother. For over 10 years, and it's been a combination of diversity, equity, inclusion, and health disparity. So it's been that intersection of both. For the last decade or so, I generally have worked under contracts that were for the federal government. So the Centers for Disease Control, SAMHSA, REACH, all federally funded not entities, but programs or initiatives about what you just said. Charles, hey, we need someone to get, particularly in the Black community, and well, you're Black and you understand uh, how to talk to this community, receive information from this community, and also be able to assist this community being able to get our services or our information into those communities. And so something that I thought was natural, that everyone knew, I've learned very early on is not, and that I had a subject matter expertise that I was not only trained in, but it's also my lived experience. So when we talk about that inclusive voice, that has been my job for my entire career. Hope that gave you a little bit of background.
That does. And see, this is so the cool part for you all out there, that cool part for me is that I know Charles well enough that I don't have to pull punches. I can move around. I know he can keep up. So I'm excited about this shit right now. So one of the things that you covered, Charles, is something that we hit on on the show regularly, is the concept of practical genius. There is this, a lot of times when we think of genius, there's this objective standard that was created by people who are in power to tell us how closely to them we are. These are my words. I own this shit. This is mine.
Okay.
And what I have found, especially in the business consultant and nonprofit development space, is that you have people to this point that you're talking about, this practical genius. Whereas other people who have resources and have, education and have all of the infrastructure, there is this critical piece that is practical. That is something that, it's part of your lived experience. It's not necessarily, while you have gotten education to understand it. It is because it is part of your lived experience, it brings a nuance to that conversation and it's more informative. So I really appreciate how you have been able to make that a central point of your professional development, and even how you articulate it, because that practical genius is one of the things that I think in our community is what we bring to the table because of our history of oppression through different circumstances. It wasn't like some other populations where there's this point in their history, all of the oppression, then it's over. That is not the experience of Black people. And so it provides a different, a nuanced perspective as we start having these conversations about policy, about programs, and about these types of things. So again, I am very grateful that you had it. So that's another thing we do. Again, I'm not sure how many of our shows you've seen. We highlight some good shit when good shit happens, because too often, like particularly in our professional practice, oh, that's your job. Who cares? That's what you're supposed to do.
Yeah.
But I think part of the challenge as we are developing a more inclusive society and inclusive workplaces, that we need to start calling out not just the opposition, but we also need to call out the positive.
Yeah.
So that in saying that, like practical genius, hopefully somebody's like, well, I got some practical shit I need to bring to the table too. And we are creating a more open table because we recognize the value of what everybody brings. So thank you for that. I appreciate that shit. Okay. Now, one of the things that you did mention, though, is that kind of is the corollary to that, is this idea of tokenism in the DEI work.
Yes.
And I have found one of the reasons that I have been hesitant to take certain roles in that space, like I'm more than happy to do workshops, I'm more than happy to do that, is that many of the organizations that I've seen, and when especially the ones that get really excited about doing the work, they're excited about it from a genuine place, but not an informed place.
Yeah.
So it becomes, I want to hurry up and do this. I want to show you all how, because I went to the workshop and I believe, brother, I believe it's going to be awesome. I want to show you how much. Let me do something.
Yeah.
But it is that something that comes without the lived experience. And then what I have seen is that they find people who are skilled in navigating in these different communities, whether it's LGBTQ, Black people, Native Americans, immigrants, which the fact that they just say immigrants, like there's not 150 some countries around the fucking world, and you try to act like all of them, everybody comes, that's a different show. We're going to do that show later. But right now it is that, how do you navigate this? Because I know again, let me tell y'all about Charles, what I know about Charles. Charles not going to be around here, y'all, if y'all going to be on some bullshit. not too long. He's gonna call you out on it, and politely though. He does it very well. I've seen him make people feel good about being stupid and then get educated. It's beautiful. That's not my ministry. but how do you? So I know that you wouldn't be in a situation where you get to be the cool black face and yes, listen. How do you navigate those faces? Because it seems like a lot of the ads and a lot of the opportunities are kind of for that. I need you to be black enough to make sure what we did sounds good in your community. How do you keep
Yeah,
that?
it has been a very interesting space. So thank you for acknowledging. My goal is to assist people who look like me. I'm very unapologetic about it. That doesn't mean that I don't love all Christian. I don't love all of God's children. I love those who are my family members, my friends, my community, my extended community, my world community. And so when I have been put in these spaces, it is, for me, my job to tell the truth. And as you said, how that truth is told is a different story. But to be able to say to these, entities that are employing me, that this is not going to work for this community. And then also acknowledge that if you try to say to this community X, Y, and Z, there will be pushback. And I'm letting you know now, this is not going to work. So a perfect example, one of my very early on contracts, the statement was on the flyer, Black men, we're going to teach you how to be happy. And the population were Black men over 50.
I saw that's the most, we have to acknowledge the bullshittedness in what you just said. So it caught me off guard because you're right, that happens. I apologize. I needed a moment because I wanted to follow you, but that hit me.
Yeah, it hits you.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm sure you've met in your life some Black men over 50. One of the things you're not going to do is tell a Black man over 50 what he needs to do. That's not how that works. That's not how that works.
Yes, because my birthday is next year, and I was like, "Hey, wait a minute, who you gonna tell me to do what? I'd be damned."
Exactly.
So,
and so I had to tell a director of marketing, and this was a national organization, so they're multiple states away. Sorry about that. They're multiple states away, and they were giving me pushback around, well, no, this is the collateral that we use for everyone. And I had to say, it's not going to work for this population. And luckily, I had a Black woman who was my direct report. And so I sent her my workup of wording. I don't remember the exact wording, but it was something like, let's work together to be healthy. The connotation is very different than I'm going to tell you how you need to be healthy. But to go back to your original conversation that you brought forth, is that I have to tell the truth, and I have to acknowledge that the Black community, which is my general community that I'm working with, is smart enough to see through what you're trying to sell. So either we're going to have a real conversation or we're not going to have the conversation. But that there is no in between. So I took the long way to get the answer.
No, that is absolutely what I'm looking for, because in addition to really getting people an opportunity to get to know you and to think about DEI differently, one of the things I recognize is that we have professionals who watch the show who are trying to figure out what does this mean for their career as they navigate through their spaces. Yeah. I know for me, like, and I appreciate your perspective on the telling the truth part, and I love the fact that there are multiple ways to get involved in this, but they all come back to anchoring into making sure that the interests of the communities that you represent are served and that you understand them. Because for example, there are times where just because you've known me for a year, for a little bit of time.
Yeah.
I am comfortable saying that I am not like most Black men I meet. The way that I process information, the things that actually get me. So for somebody to come and be like, "Oh, you a Black dude from Baltimore? Oh, I know what you want. Oh, I'm sorry, both will fuck you." Actually, let me tell you what had happened was on the show. We had a gubernatorial candidate come on the
Mhm.
show early on in my time here with Black USA News, and he had a great resume in civil rights. I really did feel that he had Black people's best interest at heart.
Yeah.
One of the things that he said, though, in trying to talk Baltimore, and I felt not so much condescended to, but what do you call it when you pandered? I felt pandered to.
Okay.
Because he was like, well, you know, when I become governor, I'm going to come in and we're going to save Baltimore. Whoa, 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 whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Yeah.
White guy coming in on a horse to come save me.
Yeah.
And I had to let him know that that phrase by itself is exceptionally disrespectful to all the shit that I've been doing.
Yeah.
So what you're telling me is that all the work that we have been doing in this community has
Yeah.
been for naught until you get elected. And
Mhm.
unless you get elected, there's not shit we can do. And I
Yeah.
think that you know, I ascribe that kind of concern to white people in power in general.
Mm.
I ascribe it to them. How have you been able to kind of, you talk about the challenge that you get when you bring up these very,
Yeah.
I co-sign on the fact that that was some bullshit to say to people.
Yeah.
But how do you navigate that? Because the reality is that paychecks are real things.
Yeah.
I've tried to tell BG&E that I do great work in the community and that I am loved and respected. I have changed lives, and they like, that's cool, but it'll still be $211.17.
That's a very
so
specific amount.
I go through shit and I share it with my people. Okay, we working through this together.
Yeah.
But how do you navigate that space, because it is real, your professional reputation?
Yes.
Because Black people who don't play well with large, white, powerful organizations, I've seen careers ended.
Yes.
So how do you able, because managing that truth, I'm sorry, it's just to me just.
Yes.
I'm gonna
So
mute myself.
I am going
I'm
to
excited.
be very, oh, you muted yourself. I'm going to be very transparent. And actually a mutual friend of ours brought this to my attention, which I never thought of. I don't know if this is by happenstance, by design, but most of my direct reports have all been people of color. And so I think I have a privilege, and I'm in a privileged space that many of my counterparts are not in, that I have a slight bit of covering being under people of color. Mostly, for the most part, 99% have been Black. And so they understand that even if the overall organization is white led, that this person that I'm reporting to is a Black person who understands. And again, she was a Black woman when I said, this is what we're about to send out for the city of Baltimore. And then they extended my range to Prince George's County. We cannot send this out. And then it was going to be the same collateral for Baltimore, PG County, and then South Carolina. We can't do it. If I had someone else, and I don't even say a white person, but there could have been a person of another race or ethnicity that may have not understood why this is problematic. Again, when I tell you I have examples for days, there's another organization that I was consulting with that did not run something past me, but I got together a focus group of 18 to 24-year-old college educated Black folk. So it wasn't technically a focus group, because a focus group has multiple ranges. So, but it was, they needed a sounding board of 18 to 24-year-olds. So I was able to get them their sounding board, but they did not run the collateral against the marketing campaign towards me first. And so we get in this room and there is Tyrone with cornrows talking about the health disparity. And I'm thinking now, as I think about it, I'm like, no, this is horrible. They didn't tell me first. And so these are all college students who are being taught by some of the best and brightest about how to dissect these things. They tore this national campaign apart because of all of the biases that come with it. Why is his head cornrowed? Why are his pants sagging? who is he supposed to be talking to? Because this actually doesn't resonate with me or my friends. So if this is supposed to be a national campaign that the federal government is going to, put money behind, this is not it. This is, I was embarrassed, but at the same time, and not embarrassed because of the
student feedback.
The student feedback. Thank you. I was embarrassed because the organization that brought me to these students had me being a part of basically inflicting more racial trauma on a group that we're supposed to be helping. And so when we talk about that truth telling and how do I navigate that, afterwards I didn't have to tell the truth. The students did it for me. I understood that, again, we are our own subject matter experts. And there's a privilege around in classism around, well, I have this college degree. So thank you for saying that earlier, or I'm trained in this and I know what people want, versus asking the people. So
Stop it. That now we have a whole new conversation.
Okay.
That we are everything we were going to talk about. We're not going to talk about that anymore.
Okay.
That right there is for me in the DEI space. That right there is where it all goes wrong.
Yeah.
It goes wrong because, in my estimation or my experience, there are a lot of people who are afraid to talk to people.
Yeah.
So we assume people. I use relationships as a metaphor all the time. If somebody is trying to talk to me, it's like, oh, you from Baltimore? Okay, I know what you like. Okay, whoa. Again, I have no idea what that means. All I know is it don't feel good because you have negated my entire identity.
Yeah.
And so I talk about, like, you can have the rest of the damn show if you want to talk about how, not just how important it is, but the methods that you use to make sure that these voices, because you're right, once you bring other people's voices, you ain't gotta say shit. Like, no, they told you was stupid and they the ones you after. So go ahead, do you, son. Tell the people.
So one of the ways that I have learned fairly quickly, through some of the work working under you and our time at the Urban League, working for the National Urban League, is that generally when I'm brought in, it's usually under the gun, under grant deliverables. And well, Charles, we actually just received these funds 3 months late, so we actually need for you to meet some of these numbers as soon as possible. And so the first thing I do, and I've had to work in, I want to say, and I can't count past 5, so it probably 10 markets, which included 15 to 20 different cities around the country. The first thing I do is I do a landscape analysis of who's already doing this work. I'm not trying to come in and try to create an entire campaign because I do not have the time. So who's already working on this issue? How can I partner with them? And how can, if possible, I can get some of their needs met or their deliverables met? And so when I say needs is, this is a soapbox moment. I have an issue with, in the space that I'm in, particularly on the health side, but on the services side, period, is that we ask the communities to give to us and we do not compensate them for their emotional labor or their actual physical labor. So that's one of the first things when we talk about being authentic. I have to come in and say, oftentimes, or I've had to, I should say in the past, is that I am working under a very limited budget. And this is the amount that I can compensate you for, or I have no budget to compensate you. So I understand that you may not want to work with me. And the second thing is time constraints. I am only here for a short amount of time. I'm generally only brought in for a contract for 1 year to 3 years. So please understand that I may not be here long after this. So are you okay with moving forward? So finding the subject matter experts in the area who will often connect me to the gatekeepers in that community, and then being very clear about who I am, who I represent, the time constraints, and if there's money involved in it. I've been able to be successful because they understand who I am. It's upfront. This is what I'm here to talk about. So if the disparities that I've worked on have been cancer, just overall cancer, overall cancer, lung cancer, tobacco, HIV, mental health, flu, the gambit, all very topics that no one wants to smile about. They're not happy. They're not bunny rabbits. Like, but I've been successful because I've done that. And so one of the things, one of the initiatives that I remember being a part of was around HIV. HIV is not a sexy topic, for lack of better words, to put sexy and HIV together, but it's not. We're coming up on, probably when this comes on, we'll be in October, which is Breast Cancer Month. I do a breast cancer event, I can get 100 people with less than 2 weeks of notice. People come out for breast cancer because it's been marketed very well, and many people have had a family member touched by it. HIV still to this day still has a stigma around it. So I knew, okay, how can I make this event pop, but it will meet the deliverables of the grant? Being in this young professional space, I know two things. I know that young professionals love to talk about themselves and love to talk about their relationships. So I crouched this event with the partners, again, local partners on the ground, because I was coordinating from Baltimore an event in Oakland, and I had never done that before. We ended up getting standing room only because I put this HIV topic under the auspice of relationships. And it was intersectional. The age range ranged from 20 to, I think the oldest member in the audience was around 70. It was intersectional around gender identity, and gender orientation, sexual orientation. And so we were able to hit multiple facets, but I could not have had a standing room only event without utilizing and being authentic with those subject matter experts who were community members on the ground.
Right. That makes perfect sense. And again, it taps back into this concept of practical genius. Like, you recognize that with your expertise in these things and even your experience, that is probably, for the people on the ground in the realm of understanding HIV, being able to communicate it and understanding the overall kind of the larger level, the higher level, your skill set was probably superior to theirs. But where it mattered, where the rubber met the road, it is that human dynamic, that engagement, being the trusted partner. And one of the things I again want to shout out, because when we hear good shit, we celebrate good shit. I want to highlight the fact that one of the things that you talk about, not just honesty in this kind of you philanthropic honesty, like, oh, it's an ethical thing to do. The Lord has commended me to be honest, and I would be Plato's Republic. Is it better to be just, or it's not that? It is a very practical level of honesty. It is about level setting expectations. And I think that what you have done is that you have separated honest, accurate, and right, and being able to give them one of them without them expecting the rest. So I am upfront about, I'm honest with you about what I can and can't do. So you can level set those expectations. Now, when it comes to this other stuff, I may volunteer to help, but don't make that part of your decision making. Because I am letting you know, if you make your decision making off of that, that's on you. Again, going back to relationship, it's kind of like being like, I want to be a friend with benefits. Like, yeah, I'm going to move in. Like, oh no, that's not the same thing. Those are not even in the same family. And so it is being, I mean, come on, what did you think? You thought we were going to get through a whole show with not a sexually based example? That's disrespectful.
I feel you. I understand. But you see how you just did it? You related it back to something that people understand, and that has been a part of my work. We love to talk about inclusion nowadays, and diversity and inclusion, and now equity. And it's one of those things. Everyone, again, you have me on soapbox moments today. Everyone loves to have these conversations until it's time to actually implement them.
Okay, so you want your own show. That's what I'm trying to figure out.
No, I don't.
You want your own show, because that's a whole new topic. Go ahead, talk about that.
No, so implementation around, when we say inclusion, that means I actually have to invite you to the table. But the second portion is I actually have to listen to what you have to say. And The third part
Say
is
that part again. Say that part again.
I have to
But
listen.
I've seen too many people fuck up on number two. You need to say
I have
that.
to listen to what you have to say. And the third portion is now I have to communicate back to you how we're going to put what you said
Mm.
action.
And sometimes the answer is we're not.
And that second and third portion are the hard parts, because particularly for me, and this could be my Taurus bull stubbornness, I know what I know.
Mm-hmm.
And so if I'm going to be transparent, there have been times when I know what I know, but I'm getting pushback from those who are paying me for my expertise. And how do I now have this conversation with you around, you're paying me to do this job. I'm telling you this is not going to work, but you want to do it anyway. And so this has been always been a struggle with me in my career, is how do I now allow the organization to falter, and then, or do I try to my best to course correct around some of the idiosyncrasies that you just don't know that you have. And so that's something that I am in constant wrestling with myself with. There have been times where I knew something was needed, whether it was for an event, and I said, you know what, they told me not to do it. I'm going to have it in my bag anyway, just in case. And sometimes it's a physical bag, sometimes it's a figurative bag, but I'm going to have it just in case what I think is going to happen happens, and something falls by the wayside, and then it's needed. And then I'm able to say, hey, I thought you might need this. And someone, and this happened during one of the more local campaigns, the statewide campaign. And one of the my counterparts who he said, you went ahead and did the job anyway, even though you were told not to. You didn't have to do the job. I said, well, I knew the job had to be done, and I knew that this was we had a long list of things that needed to be accomplished, and this was going to fall, but it was very important that it was done. So that's, if I'm being transparent in this DEI space, is that wrestling with being able to say, hey, this is going to work or this is not going to work. And then it being okay if someone doesn't listen to me or organization doesn't listen, and then we now have data to say this did not work. So that's where I am in my career now, is that I am not a data analyst by trade. I'm not a data wonk, but I'm understanding more and more the collection of baseline data and then reviewing it and then figuring out what has worked. So there's a lens called participatory action research. It's very long title, but it's a framework of around working with communities versus on communities. It's almost like the sixth grade science fair. You have a diagnosis, what is the issue? Getting feedback. So again, that feedback from the community that you're working with. Action planning with that community that you're supposed to be working with. Action implementation, evaluation. And so I'm learning more and more now around that portion around data collection and evaluation, where I can now not have to get so upset with why I told you it wasn't going to work. I can now show you, hey, you had made the suggestion that you not follow my suggestion. So we didn't. Here are all of the things that worked and didn't work when we went that path. How should we move forward now?
Let me, because this is a really great place to talk about some of the career navigation and career management features.
Yeah.
Because this is something that particularly I've seen, and it may be, my selection bias, but I've seen with Black people is trying to navigate this space, primarily because, I'll speak for myself, I am always concerned that if it does not go down, especially if I'm one of the few in the room and I'm not leading the project, that somehow it may end up being my fault, and even worse, the passive aggressive your fault. Oh, well, next time just do it. No, because those are things that need to be called out, because those microaggressions in the aggregate become career ending, because it slowly starts to change the way people think and be like, oh yeah, he did come up a little short that time. Okay. It's like, no, ma'am, sir, I did not. This was done. So how do you, in providing these types of feedback, because I provide these this type of feedback regularly. And I'm transparency. It doesn't always go well for me.
Yeah.
I am always, most of the time I'm understood and there's no issue around clarity, but sometimes it fractures the engagement, especially if I'm not aware that this was a big deal for them, that this decision was like, oh, I made this decision. I'm like, oh yeah, I see you did it, but now let's look at it and how bad it was. Let me run through all of the itemized lists.
Yeah.
Well, and by the way, I have the other list. Remember this is what I told you was going to happen? Now let's compare the two. Oh my God. Oh my God. So I've realized that that's probably not the most career supportive way to get that done. So how do you, because again, it's the same issue.
Yeah.
How do you do it?
Oh, I told you it has been a struggle. I have had to learn. I've had to have people pull me inside and say, well, you need to pull back a little bit, because I, particularly early on in my career, is I was going straight, just like gung ho, and sometimes people will have to say, hey, your message is being marred by how you're giving. And so that's one of the things that I constantly have to work through. There's a brother, also an urban leader. His name is Jason William Johnson. And his realm is more so psychological typing and leadership. And he connects the two. And he often talks about communication. If someone else is not getting what you're saying, it's up to you as the communicator to adapt and understand how you're saying it to fit their needs. And so, which sometimes I wrestle with, but that's something that I have to constantly think about is, am I not speaking your language in order for you to receive what I'm trying to tell you? Or there's at times where people are just, they don't want to hear. And so, and they may be in their space of dominance, and so when I talk about dominance, I'm not just talking about race. I'm talking about, it could be race, gender, orientation, age, ability, class, religion,
or role at work.
Which is also a privilege. I have to remind folk of that, is that your title grants you a privilege. And there are some times when I've said to people, I may need you to check your privilege, and someone immediately went to race. And I'm like, no. I need you to check the fact that you are in a superior level position and you are able to inflict harm on others by not listening to this conversation right now, or excusing yourself from this conversation. So there are all of those levels. And so when I'm talking to someone, that's the analysis that I'm going through in my head of that person's privileges, because I may not know anything about William outside of what I perceive as a Black person and a man. And obviously I'm part of the same cohort as you, but when I go into an organization that is led by all women, and they don't know me by name, they don't know me by any of my credentials, but they see me when I walk in as a Black man, or if we go for either further, a cisgender man, they may have a whole story created around, okay, here's another man coming in. Is he about to tell us what we need to do? Is he going to overtalk? Is he going to commandeer this conversation? Is he about to mansplain? So when I'm going into an organization, I'm thinking about how I may come off, how I may be perceived. And then also I'm trying to recognize my own biases at the same time around what I'm perceiving about you and what you may be triggering within me right now, by just having that conversation. So when you say, well, how do you deal with it? I am sometimes I'm analyzing and over-analyzing the situation in order to be able to say, okay, let's meet at a space where we may disagree, but we still want the deliverables, because a lot of times my jobs have been deliverable based. This is what you need to get done. So that's how I have been navigating. Sometimes it works, William. Sometimes it works very well. There have been other times where not so much. And one of the times where the output worked, but the inner clashing it was bad, where an evaluator and a diagnostic tool that they had to use, it was like, you know what, you all are like, missing each other. And we had to look at our Myers-Briggs, we looked at our DISC assessment, and me and this person who was my direct report were opposite on both of these tools. And so using that, I was able to better speak that person's language, because I'm like, when I'm knocking it out the park here, we're meeting our deliverables, we're doing better than our counterparts right now, but you're not seeing that. Because you're seeing this through a lens that I'm not seeing this in at all. So that's also another tool that I use often. It's like, whether it's the Myers-Briggs, just to be able to better communicate with how you need to receive the information.
And I think it's really important that you focus in on the needs of the receiver, not just what I need you to know. Working with a client, she had talked about how there were things that she needed to do to try to figure out what prices she needed, because she's in a very specialized space. And so as we're talking about it, I'm like, well, tell me about some other people, because she's talking about how she needs to monetize, and I get nervous when people start talking about that, because normally quality be damned, and we just gonna get out here and chase this paper. And for most people, that, unless you're in the nascent experimental stage, that is not a good investment of resources. And so what I didn't do is communicate a transition in my thought process. So what happened was that she was talking about how she wanted to monetize. And so I was like, well, who else does it? Who else do you know that is actually making money on this? What she heard was, here's another man who does that. I've worked with these male business consultants before. You're not listening to me. You're trying to make me prove to you that I know what I'm doing, And what I did, and the thing was, what I was doing was we were on a phone call, so I'm taking notes, because my job, from my perspective, is to go look up these people to find out what is they're doing, so I can bring it back to you, so that you can integrate it into your business plan and your business model. And that's what I should be doing. And that's absolutely hell. It was more than she had paid for. But because I did not make the transition, when we circle back around again, and I'm so grateful to her for sharing. She's like, I got to be honest, because part of my business consulting practice is the social emotional portion, because to try to pretend that you're only this professional at business and all of the other stuff doesn't exist, I think is disrespectful, and it leads to failing businesses. And so she's like, I got to let you know that I did not feel well about the way that you handled the situation. I got to be honest, I'm tired of people always making me try to prove it, try to doubt me. And I was like, what are you talking about? And she said, well, I'm trying to explain to you what I want to do. And then you start quizzing me about who else does it. And I was like, I apologize. And I showed her my notes, because as I'm taking notes, like, look this person up, see what they do. I took a picture of my notes and sent it to her. It's like, this is what I was doing with it. And when I tell you, everything changed. Because at the beginning of our meeting, I got that breakup energy, like that whole like, And then I was like, so how are you feeling? And that's what she shared. And I was like, oh no. And I showed her. She was like, not take a picture. I showed her, well, we were on the phone. Then I took a picture and showed it to her. And so changed everything. Not just did it change everything about that tonal energy shift, but it also reinforced that now she is in it. Like, she's like, and I want to do this. And, maybe in a month or so, you can help me with a contract. And everything changed, to your point about understanding and the modifications and being clear in the communication, not just exchanging words and ideas with each other, but really seeking to learn and understand. And I got to give it to you, bro. Like, in the last decade, I've seen you do that. It's like, and to be honest, let me be clear. Initially, it was very frustrating, because I'm like, I said these words, like, and then you repeat them back to me, and I'm like, is he slow? Like, does he not? Because I just assume people are slow. That's just
which is, which I understand, and that has also been a technique that I've had to learn through the years, because you may have said something and I have perceived it to be something completely different, because I have filtered it through my lens. And so now I have learned this technique from watching others who I feel are very good communicators of saying, so what I'm hearing you say is,
And I got to give to you that I integrated into, it was a tool that I had learned, but watching you do it, and also watching me understanding you do it.
yeah,
Because again, one of the, this is something, if y'all work with Charles, sometimes it seems like he's just doing random shit. Like it's
yeah,
like that's just a weird ass question to ask me, but
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
But what you find is that it comes back around. Oh yeah, no, that makes perfect sense. And
yeah,
so that navigation piece, to your point, it is using those as understanding the full panoply of tools that
yeah,
you can bring to a communication, to understanding, and seeking to first be to first understand
yes.
before we jump to I need you to understand me.
Yes, it's a tool that I try to sharpen and utilize often. Uh, uh, Asking the questions, and so I utilize a lot of diagnostic tools that help me build myself. So Strength Finder was one of them. One of
Mm-hmm.
my five strengths was connectedness. And so
Mm.
I appreciate it when you said, oh, well, Charles just went here and then went all the way over here. And I'm not quite sure how it connected. And in my mind, it makes perfect
It's
sense.
a bright neon sign. It's
It's a
like
bright neon sign. And so that's my, the new question is what is your superpower? Connectedness is my superpower. Now, with the strength that I have to build on is being able to now help others understand how I got from A, and it looks like I jumped B and C and went to how is he even on E and F? Wait a minute now, how did you get there? And so my superpower is connectedness, but then the tool I have to use, and so I know you're using relationship metaphors. I'm using like comic books and things like that. My artillery belt is
uh-huh.
Batman.
Yep.
Uh, is I have to be able to put that in there and say, hey, William, this is how I got from there to here, because my mind just automatically went to a different space. And then when I can help others see the vision that how I got this, like, oh, this works. And when we talk about inclusion, now I just included you in my process. With some folk that's good. They love it. Sometimes it has been a work through is that some folk, depending on how high level they are, don't care about the process. They just care about the end result. So I have to walk that fine line of, okay, do you want to know how I got here, or you just want to see what's the end result? Now, again, understanding your needs. So that if that goes back to equity, but we talked, we're in constant conversation. You don't need my process, got you. I'm gonna get you
Mm-hmm.
this number. We need to get this information out to 1,000 folk. All right, this is what I'm gonna do to get there. Got you. So I appreciate you acknowledging that, because sometimes folk are like, I literally have heard someone that we work with say Charles is kind of all over the place, and I was like, no, it is by design. This
Mm-hmm.
is
And I do have the experience of, for me, it's been, I don't understand how you don't see it. And so it never occurred to me to explain it. Like I remember in the Urban League, there was a lot of stuff that would come up and people would say stuff and I'd be like, well, what about that? And I'm like, oh, damn, I never, it's like, how? But again, to your point, it is just my brain processes information differently. There are things that are priorities for me.
yeah,
Like one of the things that as I work on equity and inclusion work, one of the things that I try to highlight is that there should be a baseline population that is the most disinvested,
mm,
that depending on what the priority area is, that we focus on kind of the most disinvested population in that priority area. So for example, um, I was doing some research on digital equity recently, and what I was able to find is that aside from white men, for every other identity of people, no matter what their kind of digital score is,
mhm,
when you throw disability onto it, everybody except for white men, everybody's drops
yeah,
precipitously. And so if we can figure out how to create safety nets for the disabled, and in that category, because I know my mom would be pissed when I say this, but I include the elderly, not because the elderly is disabled, but a lot more elderly people have those types of medical conditions and limitations engaging technology. So on one note, get out my comments, okay? Get out the
Yeah.
comments. That's not what I'm saying. But
Yes, the senior population, they have their needs,
right.
and it will behoove us as a society to understand that everyone does not have access. So that's the inclusion, but the access portion as well. And so I'm constantly thinking about seniors when it comes to things like parking, which has been made easier for many. But I
Mhm.
constantly think about when I go to certain cities where everything has to be done via an app. And I think about these seniors in my family who
Mhm.
may have a smartphone, or if they do have a smartphone, may not know how to download this new parking app, put in their information, and then be able to pay, which is now a whole ordeal where they used to be able just to take quarters, put it in the machine, and go. So this thing that has made it accessible for some is now a complete detriment to others because we weren't thinking about it in the design of we're just going to do this. It makes us more money, and we have forgotten about a whole community of people.
But that, to your point, your earlier point, one of the reasons that happens is because there's no fucking old or disabled people at the table.
Yeah.
Oh, and you know what? I'm gonna see if I can find some of these images, and I may intersplice them in. But there was this campaign. It was a campaign about equality, and
Mhm.
they had this picture of this black man's face, and part of it was missing, and there was kind of a white man's face underneath. And the caption was, they should have ran this by you, Charles, but let me tell you what the caption was. Underneath, we're all the same.
Oh, oh goodness. So, so, so yes, they should have ran that by a focus group because that. So, like, you know what? We can almost utilize that real time as a real life example of multiple ways that inclusion is needed. So not only should they have ran that by multiple groups.
So you know what? I'm gonna talk to Donnie about getting your own show. I see what we're doing.
Yeah, we don't definitely need to get my own show, but multiple groups would have told you, okay, so first there's the racial component around, you just said underneath we're all the same. So underneath we're all white men. So
That is the standard.
that's the standard. So that's what we're marking by. But if I'm thinking about communities with disabilities, my first thought is, oh, well, if I have, is this a vitiligo campaign? Because it, depending on how it looks, this person it may look like they have a disability. There are people out there who are Black who do have white skin as
Absolutely,
well.
yes.
Uh, who are we talking about when we're saying all the same? Because, well, then that's gender identity as well. So are we talking about women? Are we talking about trans people? Are we talking about the this whole list of things that when we're looking at this through an inclusion lens, there would have been some other conversations that took place. And sometimes even when you get the feedback from the group that or groups that you talk to, it still may not land with the public. So I don't know. I want to say this may have been a Kmart commercial. This was a couple years ago, and they had these children rapping, but the kids were mostly white kids rapping.
I remember this. Yeah.
And so there was such a visceral pushback from audiences
Cultural appropriation.
around cultural appropriation, and they didn't give the backstory around this was a class project that I think the kids had submitted and won the ability to get it advertised. So the raps were actually written by the kids we didn't have that backstory. All we saw was something that seemed to be cultural appropriation versus this is what the kids picked to do, and they actually won the advertising campaign. But we don't have that conversation when we talk
The
about
challenge, though, the
advertising.
challenge for me on that one is that conversation, it was cultural appropriation,
Yeah,
period. What we're saying is that because of the context, this
yeah,
cultural appropriation is not in the "this is shit you don't do" category.
yes,
And I think it's really because I know for me, I have a problem if things don't sound like they make sense.
Yeah.
So if you're talking fancy, you say 1 + 1 = 3. I say, no, we don't talk about anything else because I don't understand how 1 + 1
Yeah.
= 3. And so everything you say from this point on, I cannot hear it because I'm stuck there. And
Yeah.
so in situations like this, it's this idea that we need to be clear in our language about which part is the problem part.
Yeah.
Because cultural appropriation, kind of like gaslighting, when people talk about gaslighting, because of the examples that we've seen of gaslighting, it always has this negative connotation.
Yeah.
But the reality is that gaslighting is one of our teaching tools.
Yeah.
We create, I mean, our entire educational system is created, especially in America, is gaslighting.
Yeah.
We teach you stuff, then we give you tests we create, and then when you can't answer the test, then we blame you for not being smart enough.
Yeah. It's a whole system of that we have.
And so
You're getting on the
recognizing that,
soapboxes, yes.
but recognizing, so using education as an example, I'm not a fan of saying that education, because of its nature, is not gaslighting. It's like, no, it is gaslighting, but it's the gaslighting that we have accepted to use in our society. Because what I've found is that people whose brain processes things differently, it's like when you say school is not gaslighting, they're like, well, gaslighting says this, and this, and the schools do this. Oh, either you're an idiot or a liar, and I can't believe anything. Oh, well, let me tell you how I perceive it. Either you're an idiot or a liar, and your credibility is lower. And so again, that's why I try to make sure we're clear around the language. Like,
language is
that
key.
cultural appropriation socially acceptable.
Yes, and that is one of the things when we talk about inclusivity, that I know it's very hard for some today, because many groups are requiring that you say the correct terms about them. So even a couple terms I had to attack. I have been called out on some phone calls as I actually used the term elderly recently with the senior population. It was like, no, we're seniors, we're older adults, we're not elderly. And I said, oh, okay. Gotcha.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Gotcha. They checked really quick. Or the population of those with disabilities. I have to remember person first, ability second. And in 2022, groups are saying, oh yeah, we're not accepting this. Even two singers, Lizzo and Beyonce, 2 months ago. Because I think Lizzo, but I think both
there was the same word,
spaz, which I didn't know was a disease. I didn't know until the community said, and this is a disease I have. Trust, it's not fun. So for you to spaz out is not something I find fun, because you take it out of your songs. And so we're having to work through today a little differently than 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, is where disadvantaged or marginalized groups would make a request, and the community at large, or the populations that are in a dominant space, would say, yeah, we heard that. We're not going to do it. Today is a little different, because groups are understanding their buying power, and not necessarily just making the request, they're making the demand. Oh, you're not going to call me by my correct name? Oh, I'm not going to spend my money.
And neither are my friends.
And neither are my friends. And now organizations we're in a capitalistic society, are understanding, oh, we need to do something about this. Hence the boom of those with a title similar to mine as diversity practitioners or equity coordinators, and then we have multiple initials now: DEI, DEIB, DEIJ.
Oh, what's the V? What's the V?
So
you breaking it down.
So B as in boy, so belonging. Belonging.
Oh.
So there are now a lot of organizations out there, because they say the mesh between diversity, equity, inclusion should foster a sense of belonging in the organization, if we're talking organizations. And then some folk are saying, you can belong all day, but if there's not restorative justice, it means nothing. So that's why organizations, you see DEIJ, where now the conversation has gone to, we have added you to our organization. That's diversity. We've included your voice. We may have gotten you in the C-suite. We have you on boards. Oh, snap. We're now understanding that may have done a injustice around issues concerning your community, and we're giving access to your group. But there's that other part of how are we going to restore what we took away for the last 10, 15, 20, 30, 100, 300 years. And so now there are conversations around what does restoration look like. So that's the justice piece. So that's why you get me on my soapboxes, William.
Yeah, so
We
this
love
is
to
what
talk about
I
this
know.
stuff until it's time to
Disrespectful.
implement.
You disrespectful. You just real disrespectful. So this is what the hell we gonna do. We're gonna bring you back here because
Okay,
I started looking at the time like, shit, there's so much more. Like, hey, shit, I might talk to Donnie and get you your whole show before we figure this shit out. I'm telling you, because no, seriously, deadass, you are providing not just Googleable information, but the nuances about the application, the nuances and understanding about the context in which it exists, and also how, as some of us trying to do good work in this space, how do we have to navigate through some of these boundaries, barriers, some of them real, some of them imagined. Like I tell people, and I'm gonna wrap up because and this is the other thing about you get me started talking again, goddamn it. But I tell people all the time, I have never had a negative experience with police that I did not earn myself. So it and even the ones that I earned were actually not that bad. Yeah. Given my infraction at the time, I lived a very eclectic life. I was an interesting young person. So we're just gonna leave that there. But so my one of my cousins used to be the chief of Prince George's County Police Department. I have many of my family military and law enforcement. So my personal experience has never been one where I've experienced racial discrimination or those types of threats from law enforcement. But I tell you, with everything in me, anytime a light goes off behind, whether it's mine or not, you sit back a little bit, now you look around the car, like, don't look too. Okay. All right. And again, this is that type of vicarious trauma because over the course of my life, I have seen me killed. I've seen me killed in Missouri. I've seen me killed in Florida. I've seen me killed in Portland. I've seen me killed in Minnesota. I have seen my death so many times that it is now part of my consciousness. And I've seen this man do it. This man, because whether it's a woman, a man in a blue uniform, I have seen you kill me before. And I am bringing all of that energy to our interaction. And
that's I know we're wrapping up, but that's not even vicarious trauma. I'm trying to think of the model right now, but it's escaping me. That is a intergenerational trauma that is passed down, that is ingrained in your system. I'm not on the epigenetic side, but there are stress markers that are passed down from generation to generation to generation. So your body, my body, is responding to something that is viscerally already ingrained in you.
I need you to write down notes. We're gonna, because that's literally, I love talking about that, how we are hardwired for our self-preservation. And before, my heart would start pounding when I heard the bushes rustling because there's probably a saber-toothed tiger in there ready to eat me a million years ago. But now my heart starts rustling because it's not a saber-toothed tiger, but it might be a debt collector.
Yes.
My saber-toothed tiger is that same biological innate, I need to protect myself. It's just the predator looks vastly different now. Oh, I gotta use that one. Oh, that's
right.
That was fire.
And so when we talk about, well, why do Black and brown communities have such a reaction to police when there are Black and brown police folk out there? You have them in your family. I have extended family, those who served in multiple services. What is going on? And so we're not even talking about this quote unquote wokes, because that's
not even there yet.
I'm talking about physical things that I can look at and go to a scientist and say, hey, do you see that this person's DNA has been changed and altered because of the stress levels that they have and had pushed on them
Uh-huh.
from X, Y, and Z group. And so when I think about health and I think about Black men, and one of the major killers of Black men, stress. Cardi, I hate to laugh, but I laugh from crying. But when we talk about Black men and Black health, that is one of the major killers right there. Hypertension is a major killer because you have all of these things. You have the historical connection to it. And then today, because I know you had brought up mental health earlier, if you are not given the tools to be able to say, I am feeling unwell in my mind right now and in my body, and then you have society saying, well, if you're a man, man up. My brother got hit by a car. I got hit by a car and broke my leg. We'll pour a little tussin in it. It'll be all right. Walk it off.
Tape on it. That's the problem with y'all kids nowadays. Y'all want all the luxuries. You want a cast and some crutches.
So these are the things of that we have to truly unpack it. And I bring it back to the conversation around inclusion, really having those inclusive voices from the gambit saying, no, you actually should be allowed to have this conversation. And not only are youth experiencing this trauma, guess what? Everyone around you is having the same trauma and it seems normal.
You know what? So this just scheduled the next show because I'm gonna tell you, and I realized that's how 10 minutes ago I was like, yeah, we need to wrap this up. And now 10 minutes later, I'm going like, we should probably wrap this up. I don't want to get fired from a volunteer job. It's whatever.
It's happened before. So.
Brother, thank you so much for being here. I am so grateful, and I'm looking forward to bringing you back so you can drop some more knowledge on the people. Now, before you go, let them know how they can get in contact with you.
Sure. On social media, Twitter and Instagram at Diverse Charles, and also my website, charlesdjackson.com, for speaking engagements, facilitations, etc. And if I said anything that was impactful, retweet or share what I said.
Absolutely. And y'all go check out his social media, like his shit, because we need to support each other, because again, there's a shortage of dope motherfuckers out here. So make sure that y'all, when y'all see one, y'all find one, y'all support one. All right. All right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, I am again William Honolulu Jr., and I am grateful for all the time and attention that you have given us. And Brother Charles, thank you so much for being here and sharing, dropping jewels and sharing with people. And I'm assuming that you're gonna be here later, because if you don't sign up to be on the show again, I'm gonna come find you.
Okay, I'll sign up again.
All right, brother, I will talk to you later.
Thank you.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we will be back tomorrow.
Someone that you can find to see you through and free your mind. And if you find it's only you, then you can see it through. Yes, you can see it through. There is a me that you can see that tells the truth courageously. 'Cause peace of mind lives in the truth. Remember, you can see it through. Yes, you can see it through. La 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 la. 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 La 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 la. La 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 la. There is someone that you can find to see you through and free your mind. And if you find it's only you, then you can see you through. Yes, you can see you through. There is a me that you can see that tells the truth courageously. 'Cause peace of mind lives in the truth. Remember, you can see you through. Yes, you can see you through.